and we will make a start. The chat doesn't get recorded, so anything you pop into the chat, that won't be visible. So don't you worry about that. So let me just see. Little red button's going. Lovely. Okay, so hello, my name is Aquariel Singer. As I say, you'll be sent a copy of the PowerPoint, link to the recording, and you'll receive the interview preparation worksheet. Do feel free to ask questions as we go, but there's a lot that I've got in this session, so it might be that you ask a question that I will then later answer. So it's up to you. If I notice that there's something that comes into the chat, or if you ask a question in the chat that I think I'm going to answer, it's not that I'm ignoring you, it's just that I will cover it. So do feel free to ask those questions, but just bear in mind that it might already be in this list. So the outcomes of today, hopefully by the end of the session, you'll be able to, or be comfortable, identifying what the employer may be assessing at the interview stage through company research, job research, and personal research. Those are the three things we're going to cover today. You will hopefully be able to anticipate potential interview questions using different types of interview questions that are around there, and your own research. You'll be able to prepare answers to potential questions using the STAR technique, and hopefully we'll cover some strategies for calming nerves during the interview itself. So there's a lot of content, so we're going to try and kind of get through it. Obviously, if I'm going too fast, just bear in mind you will get the slides, and they do contain a lot of information. But you can, of course, ask me to slow down or repeat things. That's not a problem. And I will stick around at the end of the session so you can ask me any questions that you would like to, okay? So if you could, for me, in the chat, what is your biggest fear about interviews? If you have one. Okay. Yeah, freezing, mind going blank, wrong dress code, lack of knowledge, okay. So for lack of knowledge, do you mean kind of like not really being able to answer the question because you just don't have the answer? Okay, right. Wrong address, okay. Not knowing specifics. Okay, so lots and lots of like different things going on there, lots of different sort of fears and anxieties surrounding interviews. Well, a lot of those things, you know, a lot of the time, these are very, very common. They're all, you know, we hear about them all the time in careers appointments, and you know, I'm hoping that that ample preparation can really help you to sort of assuage a lot of these kind of fears, and kind of maybe help you to understand kind of how you might be able to manage some of those fears and feelings by doing some preparation, and that it is something that you can prepare for. It is something that you can, interviews, they are something that you can learn or train yourself to kind of be not amazing at, but like good at. You will still have those anxieties, but you can at least learn. It's a learned skill. If I can do it, you can do it. You know, I'm no longer scared when I go into an interview. It is something that you can very, very easily quite, you know, minimize. So hopefully today I will go through how you can do that. So there are different types of interviews, obviously face-to-face. So back before the world span off its axis and plunged us all into, you know, the current situation, we had face-to-face interviews. So that might be one-on-one. You know, it will range in formality. It'll be one-on-one or panel interviews where you have, you know, 4 different people and you're sat on the other side of the desk. You might have video interviews, which are kind of more and more common now, and they could be pre-recorded. So they could be the question is asked of you, and you then record your answer. and you have only 2 goes to record your answer, but that's kind of what you do. You listen to the question, you have a bit of time to prepare, and then you record an answer to it. Or it could be live, so just like our session today, it could be a live interview like that. We have a recording of our video interviewing webinar. So if you have a video interview kind of upcoming, or you'd like to learn more about that, as I say, that's a link, that's a hyperlink on the slides there. So when you get the slides, you can follow that link and it'll take you straight through. Obviously, telephone interviews, they are, actually less common now. I think, it's feeling like it's easier to do something by video, which is probably true. Or group interviews, which are probably my least favourite, because it's a lot of personalities to kind of manage. The thing is whatever the environment, a lot of the preparation remains the same. Now, what I am not going to cover today is things like if you have to deliver a presentation, or if you have to attend a group interview where you're giving activities, because that will depend entirely on the role. And you can come to us for support preparing for those in advance, and that will be on a one-to-one basis. So you don't necessarily have to ask that here, but just to say I'm not going to cover that today. So let's move on to the next one. So the first kind of step that we kind of need to cover is identifying what the employer wants. Okay, the point of the interview is for the employer to get something from you. So we need to know what that is, don't we? So in this section, we're going to cover research. Why is it so important? And how to identify what the employer might be assessing at the interview stage. So in order to know what they want, so this is the end goal, the mark scheme, if it were, let's work out what the mark scheme is so that we know how to address it when we get into the room with that employer. So the first thing that you might want to do, and probably should do, is research the company. So this is a really good way to start off the process. Think about what is on the company website. What are the key elements of their business strategy? It all sounds a little bit mumbo jumbo, but actually it's really important to know kind of what they do. Like, what does the actual company do? What's their strategy? Have they outlined any like key priorities that they're kind of working towards? Look at the mission statements. Is there a list of their company values? When I worked at the University of Plymouth, there was a list of like these weird navigation terms like explore and navigate and all. Yeah, really, it was a navigation college to start with. So they had all these values. So it was nice for me to know that, because then when I did the interview, I knew that if I aligned my some of my answers with some of those values, it looked really impressive. Do they have a list of behaviours that they look for in their employees? That's also important. Knowing a little bit about the sector and their competitors can be really, really helpful as well. Like, what's going on in the sector that you're applying for? Does the company that you're applying to or you have an interview for have any obvious or glaring competitors? Like, what sets them apart? What makes them different? That's really useful information. Also, we all know that social media is the place where you show off all the greatest things about yourself. So what's their social media presence like? What are they currently shouting about? And is there anything that they are doing that really speaks to you? Are there any projects or initiatives that they're doing? Recently, my partner interviewed for a position at a company, and he noticed that on their social media, they were talking about all the kind of philanthropic work that they've been doing, and he mentioned that at interview, because he was like, actually, I'm really into like charity work and giving back, and actually it was nice for him to make a connection for them. I know that you do this, and therefore, and that speaks to me because, that's a really useful way of kind of getting that content in there. So really research the company, really know your onions. The next thing you'll want to do is research that job. Think about the job responsibilities. Day to day, what will you be doing? Have you done anything similar before? Really knowing the job inside and out can help you to perform really well at interview. What are the person requirements? So by that I mean, when they say, oh, we're looking for a candidate who has X, Y, and Z. What have they asked for? Write them down. Which skills do you think are most important for you to do this job? What experience have they specified? Knowing that information up front can be really, really helpful. If this job advert that you're looking at and using to do this research is a bit vague, have a look at similar roles online. Is there anything in other job adverts that might be helpful? Are their competitors hiring, or have they hired? And can you look at, dig out a job advert for that? You can also speak to a person. Ask somebody, what does the ideal candidate look like? They usually have a contact information in the kind of interview process section or the application process section. What does the ideal candidate look like to you, and what might make a person stand out in an interview? There's nothing wrong with asking those questions. They might be a bit guarded, but ultimately, it is about you showing them that you're an excellent candidate. So if you can ask them, there's nothing wrong with them providing that information. So research the job, really know what the job is about. And as I say, I do have a worksheet that I will just show you very briefly now to help you to do this. So this is what it looks like, and it is new. I've only done it once before, but this is what it looks like. So there's a little bit box in each of these sections for you to kind of like make a couple of notes. It's being sent to you. Everything that I'm talking about today is going to be sent to you, even a link to the recording. So you'll get all of that information. So you can fill out this, you can make all these little notes just as a prompt, just so that you have it written down somewhere exactly what is kind of important to you. And I've also given some context about why it's important as well. Yeah. So you'll have that on there. So company research, job research. And then the next thing that I'm going to talk to you about is personal research. So it sounds very strange. Personal research, researching myself, but it's really important that you do that. You might want to make some notes on your career goals. Like, what are your short-term goals? Now, you don't need to know what you want to do with the rest of your life. This isn't what I'm asking you to do. Just think about, like, what are your short-term goals? Do you just want to get some experience in the sector of interest? Are you looking to learn more about whether or not you're going to like this kind of work? Like, whatever it is, this is just for you. You don't have to share this with the employer, but it can help you to articulate better because you've got an understanding of yourself. Sometimes if we can't sell somebody something. I can't sell you the pen I've got in my hand without knowing why it's good. You need to be able to know why you're good, why you're a great candidate. And in order to do that, you need to do some introspection, okay? So let's think about career goals. Think about your experiences. Have you done anything similar to any of the responsibilities that are on that job list that you identified in step 2 when you researched the job? You might have a biggest accomplishment, and that might be something that's relevant to the job. So you might want to write that down and think, okay, do you know what? That really, really works here. And that really relates for that employer. Think also about your skills. Which of the required skills, so not all of your skills, just the ones that they are looking for or the ones that would be useful here, which of those required skills are you best at and why? Yeah? And when have you demonstrated them? So communication skills, probably going to be in every job. Those communication skills, when have you done excellent communicating? And you really think of a really specific example, okay? Because that's going to help you. So think about, you're doing a bit of an audit of yourself here, and you're making these notes, and it will really help you in the next couple of kind of sections that we move on to. You also want to think about your strengths and your weaknesses, okay? Which elements of the job do you think you'll be great at? Now, that usually relates to a strength. Okay, I know that I'm an excellent communicator, so I think that work in the reception or communicating with clients is going to be really easy for me, and I think I'm going to be really good at that, and that's because I'm really good at communicating. Which ones do you think you'll find quite challenging? Oh, well, actually, like I've noticed that I'm going to have to work to quite tight deadlines, and I'm a bit disorganized. So, like there, I've identified 2 things. The first thing is that I'm a great communicator, so that's one of my strengths, that's relevant to the role. which one do I think is going to be more challenging? Okay, well, I think that I'm very disorganized, so that's my weakness. Okay, so learning those things about yourself is so important. Okay, so the research is the first step. Let's research. It sounds like a bloody big undertaking, doesn't it? But it will really help you perform really, really well. And the same strategy applies to any job you apply for. It's really important. So the next step is to start to think about anticipating potential interview questions. So in this section, we're going to talk about how can we make an educated guess about the questions that we're going to be asked, okay? We might not get it completely right, but we can guess a little bit about what kind of questions they're going to ask us at interview. But we also need to know what types of interview questions are there potentially, and how can we get some practice in. So anticipating potential interview questions. This is where your research is so important, right? You know, if you know about the job, you can think about what questions are going to help them to determine that you want to work for the company, that you're a good fit for the company, that you want to do the job, and that you can do this job. That's basically the point of an interview. You just need to meet all 4 of these things at interview. That's the overall goal, yeah? But we need to know what kinds of questions using our research will help them to make that decision that you are the best candidate for the job. So to start with, let's think about the types of interview questions that you might get. Okay, so these are the kind of ones that you will get. You might get some situational ones as well. I'm not going to cover those, and I'm not going to cover the last 2 here because they are going to be very specific to the industry, the sector, and to you. So the first type of question is the motivational type question. Okay, why do you want this job? Or tell me about yourself. Or why have you applied for this job now? Or what interested you about this job? Or talk me through your CV, right? These are just an opportunity for them to get to know you and your motivations towards this role, okay? So that is the purpose of those interviews, those questions, yeah? The second type of question is competency-based questions. Can you tell me about a time when you have used excellent problem-solving skills to meet a shared goal? Can you describe a time when you had to? They always say, can you tell me about? Describe a time. And what they are looking for is a very specific example of a time when you have done something absolutely perfectly, like really well. So that is why when I was talking about you're doing your personal research, I was saying you need to think about your best days, the best examples that you have of when you've done a skill. And what they are trying to do in a competency-based question is they are trying to predict future behaviours based on past experiences. So that's why they need a very specific example. If you use something vague, they can't really apply it. They can't really use the strategies that you employed because it's too vague. So think about really specific examples of times when you have demonstrated the skills you identified when doing the job research, okay? You might also get ones like strengths-based questions. This is another type of question. You can Google, by the way, all of these terms: motivational interview questions, competency-based interview questions, strengths-based interview questions, and it'll come up with loads. You'll be able to see the types of question you might get. There's strengths-based question here. What gives you energy? People have had this one recently, and I find it really funny because they're like, what on earth does that mean? But by like getting yourself used to the types of interview questions, you can kind of make assumptions about what it's trying to ask you. Like it's trying to ascertain in that thing what gives you energy. The things that give us energy are the things that we're really good at and we do really well. So ergo, what are your biggest strengths? Yeah, what gives you energy? Okay, well, communicating with others and working with people gives me energy if I know that the job involves, working with people. What would your best friend say about you? Same principle. Your best friend knows all the good things about you, your strengths, things that make you a really cool and interesting person. So long as you know what the point of the question is, what they're trying to get from it, you can start to think about your answers. Apologies, just needed a glass of water. you might also get the question, what is your biggest weakness? Now, this is one that everybody says to me, oh, I don't know how to answer that one. But I will show you a kind of a strategy for doing these. So we're going to go through the top three in the most detail today. You might get technical questions. So if you were applying for a marketing job, they might say, how might you create a marketing campaign for X new product? Now, obviously, I'm not a marketing expert, so I wouldn't know. So what I can do is kind of help you to research and do some preparation stuff around that, but that'll be on a one-to-one basis, okay? Sometimes people are asked insane, tricky, or curveball questions. They're quite popular in engineering industries, because they want to try and get your lateral thinking. They want to assess that and your logical thinking. So they might ask mad questions like, why a manhole covers round, or how many ping pong balls can you fit in a taxi? Like, insane, aren't they? They sound really scary. Thing is, so long as you show you're working, so you basically, oh, actually, I wonder if it's because, they just want to know your the way that you think, and there's no right or wrong answer to that, are there? I mean, it might be for manhole covers, but who knows? So let's move on then. So anticipating potential interview questions. This is the step-by-step way of doing this. So step one, okay, we know in the job research that the job role involves lots of collaboration with others on projects. Yeah? So what skills might be required? Okay, well, they might need someone to be a good team worker. So I'll probably need to be able to communicate well. So the potential assessment of being able to assess how good I am at working collaboratively, isn't it? They might want to assess that. So they might ask me a question. Can you tell me about a time when you've had to work as part of a team to achieve a shared goal? That could be a competency-based one, or it could be a strengths-based one, which might sound like, what role do you play in a team? So you're doing that step by step, like thinking about, step one, what do I know about the job? Step two, what kind of skills do I need to be able to demonstrate? What might they assess if I know that that is part of the job research? And four, what kind of questions might they ask me about it? So you could do that for every sort of skill or piece of experience they've asked for. Yeah. So you then might think about, let me just do another example, shall we? Hang on. So again, okay, the role, step one, job research. The role requires someone to communicate with clients and colleagues and stakeholders. Cool. Okay, so the skills potentially that they might want to assess there are excellent communication skills, and that's definitely in the person requirements. So, they might want to assess how good I am at adapting my communication styles to different audiences. As you can see up there, communicate with clients and colleagues and stakeholders. Yeah? So the potential question could be, can you tell me about a time when you've had to adapt your communication style to meet the needs of a different audience? Or the strengths-based example, how do you communicate with different audiences? So can you see how by using this kind of model of like, let's step one, step two, step three, step four, we can kind of create a bank of potential questions that we will get asked, potential topics that we might be asked questions around. And then the next thing that we need to do is prepare answers to those potential questions, yeah? So it's all, I hope this is all kind of clicking into place. So we've done the research, we know loads about the job. Okay, we know exactly we know roughly what kinds of things they're going to be assessing. So let's now move on to how we can prepare answers to these potential questions, okay? I'm aware I'm rattling through this again. Questions are welcome at all times, but again, I might cover them later on. So if I leave it in the chat there, it's for no reason other than I'm going to cover it later on, okay? So we've got a rough idea. Okay, well, they're probably going to ask me a question about my communication style. They're probably going to be asking me a question about my team working style, right? So how do I prepare answers to those questions? So in this section, we are going to cover how to use the STAR technique to structure your answers to interview questions. If you have heard of the STAR technique already, could you just raise hand button for me? Cool. Nobody. Beautiful. So we're all learning here. Okay. So the STAR technique is a storytelling method. It's essentially, what do all good stories have? A start, a middle, and an end. Actually, more and more employers are requesting your application form answers and your interview preparation. They're literally requesting this layout. It makes it easier for them, yeah, to assess your capabilities. It can really help you to structure your answers to those competency-based questions. So this is a framework for you to structure an answer, yeah? It will give you steps to follow. You know that it stands for situation, task, action, result. Okay, so when I'm delivering my answer to a question, I have a structure that I can follow. And by knowing what comes next, I know how to stay on track and not waffle, and give them just as much information as they need. So it can really help you to structure your answers when you're delivering those examples, yeah? So you've got your examples that you've been thinking about of your best practice. You can write them out in advance. And I have provided that in this handout that you're going to be sent. But it can also provide a framework for strengthening your answers to other types of question, right? So it could also help you to answer those strengths-based questions. It relies on using a very specific example. So the more time in advance you can prepare specific examples, the better it will be, because you'll have to do less work. So start thinking about your best days when you've done something like amazing, when you've demonstrated a skill really, really well. So as I say, it stands for situation, task, action, and result. And I'm going to show you kind of how you use it in practice. So let's move on. Star technique outline. Situation. Set the scene. What happened in this situation? Yeah? What are we talking about here? What was the goal? What needed to be done? So what if there was a problem? What was the problem? What needed to be done to solve it? The action. Now, this is where you have 60% of the content of this example, okay? This is the bit that helps them to predict what you can do, yeah? This is where you think about the specific actions that you took in order to meet the required goal. So you're including what you did, exactly what you did, and why you did it, yeah? And then you move on to the results. What was the outcome? Right? Sounds easily done. It's you know, it takes practice, but after a while you can again learn to get really good at this. This is something you can learn. It's not something you just innately know or you innately have. It's just something you can learn, and this helps you to articulate yourself in a far more concise way and in a far more detailed way, okay? So think about this. I also add 2 extra R's on the end of my STAR technique examples because I'm Somerset, so STAR. So I also add reflection. I add a little reflection on the end of my STAR examples. Is there anything that I would do differently next time? Or, you know, was it pretty much the best way I could have handled that situation? So I would reflect on that. That just shows that you're capable of reflection, that you're capable of like learning from mistakes or growing. And then you might do what's known as relation, my extra R, my other extra R. No one else knows this. This is only something that BAR students know because I've just invented it. How might this example help you in the job that you're applying for? So you relate it back to the role, and then you can sort of, you know, add in there your knowledge of the job. I'll show you what I mean in a second, okay? But how might this skill this example of the skill that you've done actually help you to relate it back to the role? So let's look at some examples. Can you tell me about a time when you have had to use excellent communication skills to solve a problem? Okay, so I'm setting the scene briefly. During my time working at Nando's, we had a very unhappy customer who was being loud and aggressive to staff and other patrons. Okay, there's the situation. That's all they need. That's all the context. They don't need to know everything about what he was saying or what he was doing or how you got to working at Nando's and what time of year it was. Really, really concise. That is one bullet point. That's one sentence, isn't it? Yeah? What was the goal? So this is the strategic bit. If you set the parameters, so if you set the goal, then when you meet the goal later on, it's a success, yeah? So lay out what the goal was. As the most senior member of staff, it was up to me to solve the issue. This is where you've got the goal bit. Solve the issue and minimize the upset to others. Yeah, you've set the parameters now. You've set the mark scheme. Here's where it gets the really gritty and juicy content. Action. What were the specific actions you took in order to meet the required goal? You're including what you did and why you did it. Took the disruptive patron to one side to ensure they did not cause more disruption. Spoke calmly, used open body language in an attempt to calm the customer down. I listened to the customer's problem so that he felt heard. So we were explaining why you listened, and explained that I sympathised. I clearly and firmly explained that his current behaviour could not continue because it was not fair on other customers, and I would have no choice but to ask him to leave if he didn't change his behaviour. I then offered 2 options for resolution that benefited both him and the company. Like, that is a perfect example, because remember, we're trying to meet communication. Look at all of the strategies for communication, the different strategies that I have used there. If I was talking, for example, about how I communicate with a child rather than communicate with an adult, I might say, actually, I get down to the child's level so that I can look them in the eyes. You know, that is a strategy that we use. We don't think about it. You know, the first thing that you might say is, I apologized to the customer if it was something about customer service. Because you don't ever think about that. You just do it, don't you? But we need to break that down. We need to break down how we do these things, because that's the content that they care about. That's what they want to know. Because if you're telling them all of this, this situation could then apply to any other situation where you have to communicate effectively to solve a problem. The strategy is the bit that's important, not the context. Yeah? All of this could be anywhere. Yeah? It's the strategy that's important. So the action's got to be the biggest, most detailed bit. Then the result. It doesn't have to be like, oh my God, everything went really well and I got £1 million. You know, it doesn't have to be that. The result could be something like, the customer apologized for his behavior, decided he didn't want to leave, chose one of the solutions I suggested, the matter was resolved. You have basically said that you have met the task that you identified, the goal that you identified in the task section. You have now done the result and just said that you met that task. You did it. Chose a solution. You didn't want to leave, and you apologized and calmed down. Yeah? And then here I've got another little bit. So this is the reflection and relation bit. Although this situation felt stressful at the time, I feel that I could apply these same strategies again to achieve the same result. And I feel this would be useful when dealing with any complaints in this role too. So you know, if you know that the company is, you know, as part of the job, you're going to be dealing with complaints, you know, you've then related it back to the role and said, hey, I'm great. Oh, did you know that I know about the job? So I know that I'm excellent. And this is an example of like how I'm excellent. So you're giving them that, you're making that decision for them. They don't have to. All they can do there is go, oh yeah, that's probably true. They can agree. Woohoo! So you've basically given them that. You can also use the STAR technique to answer other question types. Okay, so that was an example of how we might use it in a competency-based question. But what you can do is you can use evidence to strengthen other answers. So you can use the STAR technique to add sort of substance to other questions you get asked. So if you get asked something like, what role do you play in a team? You might preface it, while I don't mind acting as a team leader, I much prefer a more participatory role where I can be the person who identifies issues and offers creative solutions. I have a keen eye for detail, so I also like to be the person who comes in at the end of the project to do an error check and review it for quality control. An example of this is, and then you might go into something that you've done at university when you've had to work in a group, for example. So we're thinking about like really specific examples of times when we have met the skills that we have identified in our job research. Yeah? What are the best examples of our best practice? It's not easy. Obviously, it takes time to catalogue this. I have, and this is going to show exactly how much of a nerd I am. I have an Excel spreadsheet, guys. An Excel spreadsheet. On every tab and every sheet that I have is a different skill. And then I have more than one STAR technique example laid out in the STAR technique, STARRR. I've got it all laid out, catalogued in Excel. So anytime I've got to prepare for an interview, oh baby, I'm prepared. Yeah? It is a really good way of cataloging these things. And having that already means that you don't need to do it for every single, redo it for every single interview. You've got it all nicely in some format, okay? It doesn't need to be an Excel spreadsheet like me. Thank you. That's interesting, not nerdy in the chat there. Oh, thank you very much, but I am fully aware that it is a little nerdy. But yeah, it can be really helpful to have all this set up in advance, and then you can just draw on it and look through them and read through them to prompt you. Yeah, it's a really good way of cataloging these things. So choosing star examples then, like where are we going to get these examples from? It can come from anywhere. Okay, it can be from your academic work. So as I say, teamwork, bloody hell, the amount of times you have to do group projects at university, I'm sure all of you have had to do them. I once saw this thing on the internet. It was like, I want the people who I did group work with at university to lower me into my grave just so they can let me down one last time. And I thought I was so great, because there's so much difficulty in team dynamics, especially when it comes to your academic work. So really think about, like, other examples of teamwork that I can talk about. Attention to detail. My God, surely you have to do loads of work with attention to detail at university. So thinking about, like, are there best examples? Part of my university degree, I had to present because mine was biology, I had to, at the end of my degree, do a poster presentation with a scientific poster to explain my research, yeah, to give them information about the research that I did. So that is a great example of my ability to present complex or very scientifically complicated information to people who didn't really speak the language of science, for example, because it was open to, other people. So how did I make it so that it was clear? How did I change my presentation style? These are good examples. Our academic life contains so many rich examples. Extracurricular, anything you do extracurricular. I founded the knitting society, Knit Fast Dye Warm, when I was at university. Now, I was on the committee. So my thinking about, like, organizing events and things like that, I've provided some information about how I did that, and thinking and reflecting on those things can be really helpful. They can provide really rich examples. Again, volunteering, your work experience, those things, any time you've done anything. If you've worked in hospitality, my God, do you have a load of examples of times when you've had to be patient, you've had to negotiate with people who are insane sometimes. You're just like, oh my God. So really think about, like, your best and worst days. You can use stuff from your personal life. That's a last resort, really. But if you want to talk about, like, how you can adapt to change, you could talk about moving to university, moving away from home to go to university. Like, what strategies did you employ in order to make that a manageable transition? Yeah. So choose your best examples. That's either your best days or your most challenging days. The action is the most important part. So what strategies did you employ? Not the context. That's all, that's all stuff that the employer doesn't care about. It's the strategies you employed. Did you, we're talking about adapting to go to university. Did you do some research so that you were prepared beforehand? Did you set some goals, some achievable goals of things you needed to do when you get there? So you're kind of talking about the strategies that you employ in order to do a skill well, yeah? And you probably do them without thinking. But it's about really assessing those and auditing those. Keep that ongoing record. If it's Excel, it's Excel. It's a beautiful piece of software. I'm in love with it. Big fan. Or you could email yourself an outline after some challenging or successful days. I also do that. If I'm having a really crap day, just at the end of the day, I'll put 2 sentences and then email them to myself, save them into a folder that just says personal reflection. Done. And just that prompt will help me to create those examples. And again, I've put it on the sheet for you. So preparing for those other questions. So the other type of question that I was talking about earlier was the motivational question. So this is usually the first question that gets asked, right? Statistically, this is the worst answered question. And I bet that surprises you, but it is utterly awful. Some of the responses I've had when I've been interviewing people are just like, really, do you actually even know what this job is? You know, this is where the research really comes in, because you're thinking about, you know, what is it that you know about this job and this organization that you really like? That will form this answer. It is, again, the first question that gets asked, most statistically poorly answered. So if you answer it well, you'll be riding high for the whole of that interview. You'll look really impressive, 100%. And it's the easiest one to prepare for, because you know you're going to get asked something like it. You know you're going to get asked, why have you applied for this job? Or tell me about yourself. Or, you know, and it's all to do with like your motivation towards this company and this role at this time. So use your research to prepare an answer. Why do you want to work for them, and why are you a good fit? So it's why them, why you. That's the only structure you need to do. Okay? That's your guideline to follow. And again, you can prepare that in advance. You could say, you know, I'm really interested in what you're doing, and I have previous experience X, Y, and Z. My skills also meet the requirements of the role. I noticed that I'm going to be doing lots of projects ongoing at the same time, and I'm a really good person at deadline management. So it seemed like a really natural fit for me. I've got some excellent experience in X, Y, and Z, and you know, you know what the company, know what the job is. So why do you want to work for them? Why them? What's specifically so good about them? And then why you? That is all you need to do to structure that. And again, you can write that out in advance. And all that you then need to do is throw in a couple of ums and ahs, so it doesn't sound really, really rehearsed, which is exactly what I do every interview. I know that I'm going to get that kind of question, so I prepare it straight away. It's the first question that gets asked, and I always look at my scores after interviews, which I'll talk to you about later, and I always score highly on that question because I've prepared an answer. And usually, first question that gets asked, so it's the most memorable answer. And also, you know, again, other people don't prepare very well for that one. So you've got the heads up, you've got the inside scoop. So have a think about how you might answer that question. Just some notes, and I think I've prepared some support with answering that question there as well in the worksheet. Again, the strengths-based questions is the next, you know, other type, and we have said, you know, you might get those questions that say, oh, you know, what's your biggest strength, and it might be, well, what's your biggest weakness. Think about how you can prepare answers for these. Okay, you can actually prepare answers for these. It is far easier than you think. What are your strengths? How do they help you in the workplace? So my biggest strengths are, you know, good, excellent communicator. Okay, so how does that help me in the workplace? It means that I'm happy, I'm comfortable communicating via email, via, you know, whatever. I'm comfortable delivering workshops. This is perfect for my job, blah, blah, blah. So you're thinking about how these things help you and support you in the workplace, specifically this workplace, yeah? And then you want to think about your example of when you've demonstrated that strength. So you could say, oh, an example of this is, you know, how, you know, and then you launch into your kind of STAR technique for that specific strength you have, yeah? Your weaknesses. Now, oh my goodness, this is such a bad question, because so many people get this wrong, or do it in a way that's just awful. What's your biggest weakness? Oh my goodness, the amount of people who go, oh, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Because it sounds good, you know, it sounds like, oh, I'm usually the last person in the office. It sounds so insincere, and we know that it's, pardon my French, bullshit. So really think about what your weaknesses are. And you know, if you are a perfectionist, okay, I'm a perfectionist. What are you know, what are your weaknesses? Okay, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, which means that people are often waiting on me for longer than they need to be during projects, because I keep going back and revising stuff and adding detail and, you know, doing more and more and more, because I never think it's perfect. So in order to improve, I'm actually like trying to set myself time scales to get things done, and I can't go back afterwards to you know, to do it. I'm also starting to try and practice the mantra that this is it good enough? Does it need to be perfect? No. Okay, then what is the minimum amount that is going to be, you know, going to be good enough for this person? So I'm really trying to rein it in. So you can see that is far more sincere than going, oh, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Come on, like, explain why that is a limitation. Explain why it makes things difficult for you in the office, and how you improve. That just shows growth. And how much better is it to show growth than it is to just be insincere? Just be honest. If you need help working out what your weaknesses are and how to articulate them in a way that sounds, maybe good, because some ones you probably don't want to use, like, what's your biggest weakness? Oh, I'm a terrible communicator. When you're doing, something where all you're doing all day is communicating, you probably don't want to use that one. Use a different one. But you might want to set out 3 and make some notes on that, and how you improve, or how you mitigate the damage caused by this limitation that you have. I don't like weaknesses either. Areas for improvement is much nicer. You also, at the end of an interview, probably want to prepare your own questions. So they'll usually ask you at the end of an interview, have you got any questions for me? So prepare 3 that you would really like to know answer to. Try and avoid asking things like salary, benefits, what the working hours. Let's leave them for now. You've always got the opportunity to accept or reject the offer anyway, so you can ask those questions once you've kind of got through the interview stage. You might ask questions that kind of make you sound like you're really interested in the company. So think about if there's anything that you do really want to know, like, I'd like to know more about the project that you're working on with Babcock International. That sounds really interesting. Or what is it like working here? Like, what's the best thing about working here? That's a great question, because you get in like the inside scoop. You might also think about opportunities for further training, further development. Shows, again, that's two double-edged sword. You get all of the lovely information about the training opportunities, and they get examples and evidence that you are, interested in personal growth. Okay, so think about, you can prepare those in advance. So here, like, you can imagine by the end of this, if you do all these things, you've got loads of preparation done. You've got loads of kind of things that you can ask. You've got loads of examples that you've got. If you're doing an online interview, woohoo, you can have all that in front of you. They would never know. And then all you have to do is sort of use it as prompts. But it's really, really helpful to start preparing. In fact, there's nothing wrong with saying, I actually have brought a couple of prompts and notes. So you're not reading off your notes, but you just have prompts. I've had people come to interviews with a couple of like bits of paper that are their notes about what they would like to say at the interview. It just shows that you've prepared. So there's nothing wrong with you bringing in some prompts to a formal interview. You can just say, oh, do you mind if I just have my notes? They will help me to give you the best examples of my, of my suitability for the role. Like, God, that sounds good, doesn't it? So after all of this, you've kind of got that preparation there. So we're going to cover some additional interview techniques. I'm aware it's 10 to. I'm going to try and rattle through them, but hopefully they will be helpful. And again, you'll get the slides. So if you have to jet off, then do so. Don't be late for anything that you need to get to. But I will kind of continue all the way through these until the end. So we're going to cover some strategies. So top tips and nerves. Practice your answers in advance. So practice your examples, your star examples, out loud if you can. I record mine, sounds really cringy, but I play them back to myself and I'm like, oh, actually it would sound better if I added this, or if I didn't say this. If it feels like the example's really long, you can also you've got the advantage then of, if you're recording it, of timing it. You could do it on Zoom, set a Zoom meeting or Google Meet with yourself, record it, and then you've got a how you look as well, and what your hands are doing, and just really to allow you to be more conscious. Take your time when you're thinking about your answers. You don't need to rush. You can say, oh, could you just give me a minute to think about that? There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong. We would hope that you don't get thrown any sort of questions that you weren't anticipating after doing all of your research. So try and use hypotheticals if you really don't know an answer. Oh, actually, I don't really have an example of when I've done that, but I can imagine. And then think about, like, are there any strategies that you think would be really helpful in that circumstance? And you can use hypotheticals, nothing wrong with that. Or you can use examples of how you've seen other people do something. If you haven't done it directly, talk about how you've seen someone else do it. And what those steps might be, and break down those actions. So at least you're getting some points, because it is a point system. They do, score you on your answer. So you really want to kind of just, like, even if you don't know the answer, you don't say, I don't know. think about, oh, I'm not sure I have an example of that, or I haven't done that that specifically before, but I've done something similar, or I've watched that being done. You can always use hypotheticals if you really don't know. You can ask them to repeat questions if you need them to, and if you need them to break the question down. Sometimes they write these really convoluted questions, and you can listen to them. I mean, you can look at a catalogue online of different interview questions and just go, right, what are they trying to assess there, what are they trying to assess there, what they're trying to assess there. You could do that in advance. You could practice loads and loads of questions in advance if you wanted to, just so that when you're listening to questions, you're trying to work out, when you're hearing that question, what they are assessing. It shouldn't be a surprise because we've done our research. And then you can sort of think about your answer. But make sure that you are answering the question. You know, how do you communicate with others? Like, actually make sure that you're saying, oh, the answer to that is I communicate by, you know, reading the room, reading the situation, and, you know, listening to people, and practicing active listening and providing a solution or response. So make sure that you are actually answering that question. And it's also really important for you to shift your mindset, okay? All of these fears, yeah, I think a lot of our fears are like, they're trying to trick us. They want us to, they want to trick us. They want to give us like difficult questions that we can't answer. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, baby, no. If I am interviewing people, which I am going to be doing in a couple of weeks, if they come in and they are the best person for me, it makes my life easier. I am not trying to catch you out. I just want you to show me you're the best person for the job so that I can go, it's that person. Oh my God, it's so much easier for me. You know, we don't want to trick you. We want you to be the best person, because then I can just go, right, well, I don't need to interview very many other people really now, do I? You know, your mindset needs a shift. You are not a goalkeeper trying to bat away all of these footballs. Guess who knows? Guess who knows loads about football? You're the striker. You have an opportunity to fire at these interviewers the absolute perfect information that you are the best person for this job. It's an opportunity. It's not a test, okay? So really shift that mindset. It's so important for you to know that. If you're the best person in the room, you make my life easier. I can go home early. I can go home without having to have like a 40-minute meeting with my colleagues to decide whether or not we liked you best. Like, we know already. You walked in, you smashed it, you know? We're not trying to trick you. Keep that in mind, please. Think about your behaviours. So we had a question earlier about the wrong dress code. This is a really easy fix. Think about the company culture. Look at the website. What does the website look like? Universities. Oh my goodness. I look on the university website, you know, there are pictures of the academic staff and I'm like, oh, that's a pretty casual looking outfit. Okay, I'll probably wear something that's smart casual. You probably want to err on the side of caution. So think about like going a bit smarter rather than a bit less smart. Yeah, but the company culture will allow you to assess that. You're going to be wearing something completely different if you go for a job at PwC, you know? You really want to think about that. So just err on the side of caution there. Try and keep your body language open. So eye contact, if it's a comfortable thing for you, it isn't for everybody. And you know, if you want to have a chat about interviews and eye contact, please do so. You can come and have an appointment with us and we can talk about it. If it's really tough for you, we can, you know, that could be something that you ask for in a reasonable adjustment, just a consideration that actually I am not comfortable making eye contact for whatever reason. And you might just mention that. Smile. Always smile. Try and smile. Even if it's a telephone interview, you can hear me smiling right now, yeah? I am smiling. You can hear it in my voice. Smile. It's really important. And try and limit your fidgeting. I fidget constantly. Oh my God, I've been playing with pens and, you know, clicking my fingers and playing with my fingernails. Like, try and put your hands in your lap. That's fine. Or on the table in front of you so you can see them. When you're talking, we obviously all use gestures, or many of us do. So if you're going to be using gestures, make sure they're open ones, and you know, that's absolutely fine, because it just shows that you're really involved in what you're saying, and that's it's not a bad thing, so don't worry too much about it. And if you're bringing notes with you, make sure that you're just using them as a prompt, okay? You can have them in front of you, but just so long as you're not reading from them and you're just looking at them all the time, they're just prompts, okay? So it could be that you've got a little word that helps you to assess your to help you to prompt your example. So that in that first example I used for the star technique could be Nando's customer, yeah? That could just be the prompt, and then I'm like, okay, I roughly know what I'm going to say there because I've been preparing my examples and I've looked at the actions and I've revised those before the interview started. This is the maximum amount of preparation. As you can see, I'm a bit of a nerd for it. And then after the interview, reflect on the questions that they asked. You can work out which you found easy and which you found more difficult, and that will help you for your next interview, whenever that is. And what you might do is go, okay, I found that question difficult to answer. What was it about that question that I found difficult? What do I think they were trying to assess there? Okay, let me see if I can think about a star example, and I'll put that into my catalogue for next time, just in case I get something similar. Clarify when they're going to be in touch, and ask for feedback every single time. Even if you get the job, ask for feedback. I want to see my score sheet. You are entitled to see your score sheet if they have one. You can always ask. They might not be able to give you loads and loads and loads of feedback about your interview performance, but you can see the notes that you're allowed to see the notes they make, and also you're allowed to see the scores they gave you. So, you know, for each interview question, they'll tell you kind of like, they'll give you a matrix of like what you got right and what you needed to work on, and that will help you to learn, okay? So, I mean, we have rattled through that, and I know we're a minute to the end. So, I mean, it's probably a one of the ones that we've gone through. We've done a lot of things today. So we've talked about identifying what the employer may be assessing at the interview stage, and that is through the company research. So remember, we looked at the company, we were like, oh, okay, well, lots of it is to do with communicating the job's to do with like communicating on the telephone. So I probably might want to prepare a question about communication. So I'm anticipating an interview question because I know what kinds of interview questions I might get. I know that it might be a competency one. I know that it might be a strengths-based one. Okay, so how can I prepare a really good example for that? So preparing those examples and answers to potential questions using the STAR technique. And we've also talked about those strategies for calming nerves during the interview itself. So now I'm going to open up the floor. Any comments, questions, clarifications, anything you want me to revisit. Again, you get a copy of all the slides, so I'm happy to go through them. But do feel free to either unmute yourself or just pop a message in the chat to me. There is a feedback form that you'll be sent. It would really, really help me if you could fill it out. And the reason for that is that this is such a big, busy session, and I want to be able to offer it more regularly, okay? So it's really helpful if I know that it's doing the things that you want it to do, okay? And if it's not fit for purpose, and if you hated it, and if you hated me, and you never want to hear from me again, write that in there, just so I know, okay? So please fill out the feedback form. I would really, really appreciate it. But as I say, you're free to write in the chat or leave, whatever you'd like. I will just show you the worksheet that you're going to get as part of this. It's a bit small, I'm afraid. But again, it's just a framework that you could follow. You don't have to fill it out if you don't want to. If it's not helpful to you, fine, but it does give you sort of frameworks in order to be able to do these things. I've also provided a sort of a grid so that you can start cataloguing your STAR technique examples. Again, you might not want to do that in Word, you might want to do that in Excel or whatever, but it's just to give you all the content that we talked about today and give you a way that you can fill something out to prepare, okay? So hopefully you'll you'll be able to use that. I'm going to stop recording. Okay, and feel free to unmute if you want to ask a question.